The 155mm Howitzer is the go-to modern cannon, essentially. Used by NATO, Israel, Moldova, the U.S. Army recently tripled production of its shells to send to Ukraine, and it's become big news in the Adirondacks. That's because a guy wants to test them here, stoking ongoing debates about public versus private lands and what's acceptable in the delicate, remote Adirondack Park. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from the Wild Center in Tupper Lake, dedicated to strengthening visitors' connections to the natural world. More at wildcenter.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Monday, November 17th. First up, Governor Kathy Hochul says she's enlisting business leaders in her push to keep President Donald Trump from sending the National Guard to New York City. Jimmy Vielkind reports for the New York Public News Network.
The Democratic governor says she's convinced Trump that troops aren't needed because crime has fallen. Her latest strategy is to talk about the potential disruptions to financial markets that would happen if ICE agents or the National Guard are dispatched.
It would have an effect that other cities do not have because we are the financial center, and you cannot disturb that without consequences.
The president has sent the Guard to Chicago and Los Angeles. ICE agents conducted a sweep in Charlotte, North Carolina this weekend. The White House didn't return a message seeking comment. Hochul says she and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani are working together to make sure there's a unified front if Trump deploys troops. In Albany, I'm Jimmy Vielkind for the New York Public News Network.
An abandoned mine in the eastern Adirondacks could be revived to extract rare earth metals. According to the Adirondack Explorer, a Boston-based company has been studying the abandoned Barton Hill mine in Moriah in recent years. It was specifically looking at the 3 million metric tons of tailings at the mine, which the company says contains concentrations of 8 rare elements. The company presented its findings last week to the Essex County Board of Supervisors. The rare metals found are used in lasers, jet engines, and other applications. The Senior Planet Center in Plattsburgh and the New York National Guard will co-host an emergency preparedness training tomorrow afternoon. Center manager Jess Fortin says the idea is to help people be more comfortable when natural and man-made disasters strike.
No one really wants to think about these disasters and these emergencies, but if you're ready for them and you're prepared, it takes a lot of that fear out of it. A lot of that panic.
The training is open to local seniors and families. You can sign up for the free event by going to seniorplanet.org/northcountry. The training will take place at 1:30 tomorrow afternoon at the Plattsburgh Senior Planet Center located in the Champlain Center Mall. The new 25,000 square foot terminal at the Watertown International Airport was officially completed on Friday. Local officials gathered for a ribbon cutting to celebrate the improvements. They include an updated baggage carousel, more seating, and a new passenger jet bridge, which keeps travelers out of the elements when boarding planes. It also includes murals painted by a local artist. The redevelopment was supported by a $28 million state grant. Phase 2 of the project will turn the old terminal into a restaurant and improve the parking lot. For the first time in 14 years, the Adirondack Park Agency will hold what's known as an adjudicatory hearing. The hearing will review a weapons range proposed in the eastern Adirondacks. The project has raised a lot of concerns from locals and environmentalists, while some say what happens on private property shouldn't be up for debate. Our Adirondack reporter Emily Russell has our story.
For 4 years, Michael Hopmeyer has been applying for an APA permit to test military-grade cannons in the small rural town of Lewis in Essex County. The APA has gone back and forth with Hopmeyer over those years, asking for more data to understand all the potential impacts. One main concern the agency has is about noise pollution. Hopmeyer cited a sound study on the cannons conducted by the Norwegian military. But at last week's meeting, the APA's John Berth said the data Hopmeyer provided on sound and other impacts wasn't sufficient.
So staff, in conclusion, do not feel we can determine at this time that these model assumptions accurately reflect Adirondack terrain, atmosphere, and background sound conditions, and whether the Norwegian study is a reliable analog for this use.
Hopmeyer declined to speak with NCPR on the record, but in a letter he submitted to the APA in early November, Hochmeier said the agency had a, quote, complete lack of scientific and technical knowledge of the application. In that letter, Hochmeier said the local mine in Lewis produces more noise pollution and negative environmental impacts than his proposed project would. In contrast, Hochmeier said he's been a, quote, exemplary steward of the land and environment in Lewis. He owns about 380 acres in the town. He also wrote that his project is intended to, quote, enhance the public good by improving national security. The APA received about 1,400 public comments on the project, nearly all of them opposed. The agency can't deny or substantially alter a permit without sending it first to an adjudicatory hearing. So that's exactly what Berth recommended the APA board do.
So a hearing will allow collection of technical data, expert testimony, and public input that would be necessary to determine whether the project meets the conclusions of law that the agency must make under the APA Act.
APA board members went back and forth with Berth for about 20 minutes. One board member asked why Hochmeier can't test the cannons outside the Adirondack Park. One worried about the accuracy of the cannons, which would be fired over more than 600 feet into a shipping container full of sand. Another board member asked how the site would be decommissioned after its 5-year use. At the end of the APA's meeting on Friday, the board did something they haven't done in more than a decade. They voted to send the project to an adjudicatory hearing.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
After the board voted unanimously in favor of the hearing, Jerry Delaney spoke out in support of Hochmeier, the applicant. Delaney isn't a voting member of the APA board, but represents the APA's local government review board. He pointed out that the project was on private land, not in a wilderness or wild forest area.
I would really like to see a better understanding around what is private land and what is acceptable, because actuality, we all know legally, Mr. Hochmeier had every opportunity and every right to file for permit to do what he's asking to do.
The APA does have some jurisdiction over private property through building restrictions, land use, acreage size, and more. Right after Friday's meeting wrapped up, Jackie Bowen celebrated the APA's vote, calling it a big moment for the park. Bowen is the director of conservation for the Adirondack Council.
It's great to see that when things come into question, an unprecedented project, the agency can use the tools at its disposal, like that, as they should. So it's exciting.
The council has expressed concern about the impact the weapons testing range could have on the environment and the people who live nearby. And the council questioned the data that Michael Hochmeier included in his permit. Bowen said she hopes Friday's vote is the start of a new trend for the APA.
I hope it sets the tone for when it is appropriate and ripe for an administrative law judge and an adjudicatory hearing to occur for a project that's necessary, that the agency continues to use a tool at its disposal in the future.
In a statement, the APA said it's working to schedule the hearing with an administrative law judge. The agency expects the adjudicatory hearing will happen before the end of this year. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio, Raybrook.
We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. You can always listen to Story of the Day, regional news in 10 minutes or less, as Ethan Shanty likes to say. I like that tagline. You can listen whenever you want, not just on the radio, by subscribing to the podcast. It's on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Apple, whatever you use for podcasts, and it's free. You can even listen when you're on the road and there's no cell service. It's fantastic. Subscribe to the podcast version of Story of the Day. Details at ncpr.org/podcasts. Music today by Mark Corey of Watertown and the Buskers Band of Alexandria Bay. All Jefferson County, all the time. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.